Hey, everybody, and welcome to Sip Studies. I'm John Yu, and we are going to be starting our first AI Winecast. I'm very excited about this. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a minute, and I got into AI about 2 years ago. Maybe even a little longer than that. We started with image generation. We dove into natural language processing, trying to figure out answers, as well as machine learning, trying to understand sentiment analysis. There's a lot to explore. We're just going to start scratching the surface of it, but with with SIP Studies, the goal of our company is to be a beverage education and entertainment company utilizing artificial intelligence. This is something that will help us scale. This is something that will help us learn and dive deeper into the future. So I want to introduce our first guest. It is Sippy, which is our OpenAI GPT. This is something that we created through OpenAI as one of their customized GPTs. And it's a way for us to give you, the users, a capability to learn on a regular basis in your pocket. So we created the Pocket Educator and also the Pocket Som. You can find them at the GPT store under Sippy-Pocket Som and Pocket Educator. The reason why I created the two differently is because the Pocket Som, I wanted something for my colleagues in the restaurant on the fly. Something quick, impactful, more, how would you say? It's really guided to be a quick sales tool. Now, when they're studying, I wanted something to be a proctor, something to go deeper, more education, dive into a lot of required knowledge that you wouldn't have a chance to do on the floor when you're at a restaurant or behind a coffee counter. There's just no time for that. But when you're studying for your certification, whether it's Quartermasters, Society of Wine Educator, I want this to be a tool for you in two different aspects. So we're going to get started on Sippy Pocket Educator. That way we can have a full-fledged conversation with our colleague here, Sippy. And let me go ahead and get him started. And we are going to use the advanced voice. Welcome aboard, Sippy. We are currently in the middle of an AI Winecast, aka podcast, and you are our first guest. Welcome.
Thank you, Two Knives. I'm excited to be here. What's on the agenda for today's AI Winecast?
Today, we're going to dive into the 101 of wine. Let's touch about different topics on history, on technique, on grapes. We want to do a gentle crash course into the world of wine.
That sounds fantastic. We can start with the history of wine, then move on to the key techniques in winemaking, and wrap up with an overview of important grape varieties. Where would you like to begin?
Yeah, let's do it. It sounds like you know this better than I do.
All right, let's kick off with the history of wine. Wine has been around for thousands of years, with its origins tracing back to ancient civilizations like Mesopotamia and Egypt. The Greeks and Romans also played significant roles in spreading viticulture across Europe. Does that sound like a good starting point?
Sounds like a great starting point.
Perfect. So, the earliest evidence of winemaking dates back to around 6000 BC in what is now Georgia. From there, the practice spread to the Middle East and Mediterranean regions. The Greeks and Romans then helped popularize wine throughout Europe, making it a staple in their cultures. They even developed techniques that are still in use today. Would you like to dive deeper into any particular era or aspect?
Well, let's dive into the techniques and maybe the technology.
Absolutely. Winemaking techniques have evolved significantly over time. The basic process involves harvesting grapes, crushing them to release juice, fermenting that juice with yeast to produce alcohol, and then aging the wine. Modern technology has refined these steps. For instance, temperature control during fermentation helps maintain flavor, and stainless steel tanks are often used for consistency. Would you like to know more about any specific technique or equipment?
Well, let's talk about how the origins of, let's say, stepping on grapes and how they used to collect the grapes in the field. That I think is always fascinating because it's drastically different from what we currently do in like oak vats or giant containers in which we used to step on grapes and basically be able to macerate the grapes and extract the juice. What were some of the unique techniques that the Greeks, Romans, Mesopotamians used to do that they would do without the oak barrels? I know we know about amphora. We also I've seen a little bit of them crushing grapes in the vineyard and in the field.
Absolutely. In ancient times, grape harvesting and winemaking were very hands-on. The Greeks and Romans often used large stone basins for crushing grapes, sometimes directly in the vineyard. Workers would tread on the grapes to release the juice, a practice that was communal and often celebratory. The juice was then collected in large clay containers called amphorae, which were used for fermentation and storage. These amphorae helped preserve the. They also used tools like wooden presses to extract more juice, and sometimes even added resins or herbs to enhance flavor and preservation. These early techniques laid the foundation for many modern practices. Fascinating how much has changed, yet some core elements remain.
One fact, and that you just noticed it here, was that it kind of had a hiccup, right? Um, Now, that for me, I wouldn't consider that any type of hallucination, but do see some discrepancy when we're using AI in that fashion. And one of the biggest things is internet. It takes a lot of bandwidth in order to run it. And so when you're using these dialogues with ChatGPT or any other AI chatbot, it's going to require a lot of internet. So I just wanted to segue into that because, especially when we're doing image generation or using some of these new models like O1 and O3, they are requiring a lot more research, a lot more internet use, a lot more bandwidth. And you got to be patient about it because it can kind of rock the boat a little bit. I've had to restart my prompt multiple times because it didn't catch it all at once. So if you are doing something chunky, something lengthy, I would highly recommend that you get on internet at home. Hopefully you have a good bandwidth. I've tried doing it at different cafes, not always the best. So keep that in mind. All right, we're going to resume this conversation here. Keep going, my friend.
Sure thing. As winemaking evolved, the Romans further refined techniques by introducing wooden barrels, which were more durable and easier to transport than amphorae. They also mastered the art of blending different grape varieties to create more complex flavors. Over the centuries, regions like France and Italy became renowned for their winemaking traditions, each developing unique techniques and styles. Today, we see a blend of these ancient practices with cutting-edge technology, from precise temperature controls to advanced fermentation techniques. It's amazing how the craft has both preserved its roots and embraced innovation.
I agree. I agree. I think that's something that's fascinating for us to dive deeper into, but let's start relating it to modern day techniques. How do they differ? Let's dive deeper into the modern day techniques in order to preserve the flavor, prevent oxidation. Some of the techniques, again, we're going to do 101 class. We're doing a gentle crash course. So we want to introduce some of the modern techniques that we're using today.
Absolutely. Modern winemaking has incorporated a variety of techniques to enhance flavor and preserve quality. One key advancement is temperature control during fermentation. By carefully regulating the temperature, winemakers can control the speed of fermentation, preserving delicate aromas and preventing off flavors. Stainless steel tanks are widely used for this purpose. Another important technique is the use of inert gases like nitrogen or argon to prevent oxidation. This helps maintain the wine's freshness and flavor. Additionally, modern filtration and stabilization techniques ensure clarity and prevent spoilage. Would you like to explore any of these techniques in more detail?
Let's go with the nitrogen and the argon.
Sure. Using inert gases like nitrogen or argon is a common technique to prevent oxidation in wine. During winemaking, exposure to oxygen can lead to spoilage or unwanted changes in flavor. By blanketing the wine with these gases, winemakers can create a protective layer that keeps oxygen out. Nitrogen is often used to purge tanks or bottles, while argon is used for its heavier density, forming a barrier over the wine. This technique is especially useful during bottling or when storing open bottles to maintain freshness. It's a great example of how modern technology helps preserve the wine's intended flavor and quality.
I agree. I agree. Um, okay. This is so surreal talking to you live on a podcast. I really appreciate you coming here and taking the time to join us for this. Let's dive into a new topic here now. Let's go into grape varieties. What should we know?
Absolutely. Let's dive into grape varieties. There are thousands of grape varieties, but some of the most well-known ones include Chardonnay, known for its versatility and ability to produce both oaked and unoaked wines, Cabernet Sauvignon, famous for its bold flavors and aging potential, and Pinot Noir, loved for its complex and delicate character. Each grape variety brings unique flavors and characteristics to the wine, influenced by the terroir, which includes practices. This diversity allows winemakers to craft a wide range of styles and expressions.
Ooh,
We can delve into that too.
actually, can you repeat that? It kind of broke up.
Sure, grape varieties each bring unique flavors and characteristics to wine. For example, Chardonnay is known for its versatility, Cabernet Sauvignon for its boldness, and Pinot Noir for its complexity. Each variety's expression is influenced by terroir, which includes soil, climate, and vineyard practices. If there's a specific grape variety you'd like to explore more, feel free to let me know.
So, one of the things that is always good and good practice in utilizing artificial intelligence is going over the prompt again. Sometimes it yields better answers. Sometimes you might have some hallucination that requires them to clarify themselves. Or with these newer models, they can actually find better resources and actually cite the sources. There's a number of them. I'm not going to bore you with different models. I think for this purpose, as a tool, I'm going to stick with OpenAI's ChatGPT for the efficacy, for their constant innovation, and also having built our own custom GPT around their large language model. It gives us a chance to be on the forefront of all of these pioneers. We're just kind of a mask of their knowledge, right? We're just trying to filter it out and dive deeper into it. So um, we're going to take a quick pause and commercial. Just kidding. What kind of? And we're back. Wild feature. There have been some updates. ChatGPT 4.5 just got released, and now it's causing me chaos with 4.0. So always, please stay open-minded. I think this is always a learning experience because we are seeing these AI updates happen maybe every 2 weeks. It's what one of my colleagues and I call an era that is exponentially exponential. It is so hard to keep up with the technology. So, we're diving back into it, into these six noble grapes with Sippy, and let's continue. Sippy, we're going to go top to bottom. Let's talk about all six noble grapes.
Absolutely. The six noble grapes are Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot. Each has unique characteristics and regions where they thrive. Which one do you want to delve into first?
Let's start with Chardonnay.
Chardonnay's a fantastic place to start. In various climates, from crisp and mineral driven to
Let's
rich and
start
buttery.
over. Let's start with Chardonnay. Looks like you were cutting out.
No worries. Chardonnay is a fantastic place to start. It's incredibly versatile, thriving in various climates and producing a wide range of styles. Anything specific you'd like to highlight about it?
Let's go top to bottom. Why it is a noble grape, why it's so famous.
Chardonnay's fame comes from its adaptability and the variety of styles it can produce. It's a blank canvas for winemakers, leading to everything from steely, mineral-driven wines to rich, buttery ones. Plus, it has a strong presence in some of the world's most renowned wine regions like Burgundy and California.
Let's keep going.
Sure thing. Next up is Sauvignon Blanc, known for its vibrant acidity and aromatic profile. It's typically associated with regions like the Loire Valley and Marlborough in New Zealand. It produces wines with flavours ranging from green apple and lime to tropical fruits and herbaceous notes.
I like it. Okay. We'll do the brief overview. Let's keep going with each grape.
Next, we have Riesling. It's renowned for its aromatic intensity and range of sweetness levels, from bone dry to lusciously sweet. Primarily grown in Germany, it's celebrated for its vibrant acidity and ability to age gracefully. Following Riesling is Pinot Noir. Known for its elegance and complexity, it's a finicky grape that thrives in cooler climates like Burgundy and Oregon. Its wines are typically light-bodied with flavors of red berries, earth, and spice. Then we have Cabernet Sauvignon, a robust grape that produces full-bodied wines with dark fruit flavors and firm tannins. It's a staple in Bordeaux and Napa Valley, often blended with other grapes to add complexity. Lastly, Merlot is known for its softer, approachable style with plush tannins and flavors of plum, black cherry, and herbs. It's versatile and widely planted, excelling in regions like Bordeaux and Washington State. That covers all six. Want to dive deeper into any of these?
Well, let's dive into the differences between Old World and New World styles. How did that even come about? And why do we blind taste like New World, Old World comparisons?
The differences between Old World and New World styles mainly come down to climate, winemaking traditions, and regulations. Old World wines from regions like Europe tend to emphasize terroir, resulting in more restrained, earthy, and mineral-driven wines. New World wines from places like the Americas and Australia often showcase ripe fruit flavors, higher alcohol, and more pronounced oak influence. Blind tasting is a fantastic way to objectively compare these styles without bias. It helps tasters focus on the wine's characteristics rather than the label or reputation. Want to explore any specific differences in more detail?
Absolutely. When we're talking about wine tasting, Old World and New World, especially with blind tasting, we have a couple big characteristics. But I'm curious from your perspective, what you find different between Old World wines and New World wines. At least what the internet tells us, and what is kind of a commonality that is a safe bet for any beginner.
Absolutely. A common way to differentiate Old World and New World wines is through their flavor profiles and structure. Old World wines often have higher acidity, lower alcohol, and more earthy, mineral, or savory characteristics. They often reflect the terroir with more subtle fruit notes. On the other hand, New World wines tend to have bolder fruit flavors, higher alcohol content, and are generally more fruit forward. They can also be more influenced by winemaking techniques, like oak aging, leading to richer, more opulent styles. So a safe bet, Old World wines are generally more about subtlety and terroir, while New World wines are bolder and fruitier. Does that match what you've experienced?
Bravo, that is exactly what I've experienced, and also eloquently put. I think that's always fascinating to see and compare. Now, since we're talking about different grapes, especially multiple variations, let's dive into single varietal grapes versus blended wines. What's the difference, and why regionalistically are they important?
Great question. Single varietal wines are made primarily from one grape variety, showcasing the pure expression of that grape. This allows the characteristics of the grape to shine through clearly. Examples include Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. Blended wines, on the other hand, combine multiple grape varieties to create a more complex and balanced wine. This blending can enhance structure, flavor, and aging potential. Classic examples are Bordeaux blends or Rhone blends. Regionally, these practices are important because certain regions have traditions and regulations around what grapes can be grown and how they're used, which contributes to the unique identity of each region's wines. Have you found a preference between the two?
Me personally, no, I'm an emotional drinker. I like to drink whatever is um, kind of the spur of the moment, how I'm feeling. But I always appreciate a good blend. Me personally, I'm a big fan of Rioja. I've always loved Tempranillo blends. Single variety, I'm a little more biased. That's when I go region specific. Like I love Alsatian Pinot Gris, and I love to have an amazing Sancerre. That's it's just I want that pure flavor. But at the same time, every day is different, right?
Absolutely. Every day is indeed different. It's wonderful to have such a varied palate and to enjoy wines based on your mood. Rioja and Tempranillo blends offer such depth and richness, while Alsatian Pinot Gris and Sancerre really highlight the beauty of single varietals. It's all about finding what speaks to you in the moment. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Hey, what about beginner tips for recognizing grapes? Let's say sight, smell, taste. With Quartermasters, Society of Wine Educator, and WSET, we break it down by the sight, smell, and taste. And I'm curious from your perspective, why do we break it down? How is it methodically important to subdivide all of these flavors and aromas in a way that helps us both remember and also eventually blind taste these wines?
Breaking down wine into sight, smell, and taste helps methodically analyze and remember each wine's unique characteristics. Here's why each step is important. Sight. Observing the color and clarity can give clues about the grape variety, age, and even the climate where the wine was produced. For instance, lighter hues in red wines might suggest Pinot Noir, while deep purple could indicate Syrah. Smell. Aromas reveal a lot about the grape and winemaking techniques. Noting primary aromas, fruit, floral, herbal, and secondary aromas, oak, yeast, etc., can guide you in identifying the grape. For example, green apple notes often point to Chardonnay, while blackcurrant can suggest Cabernet Sauvignon. Taste. Tasting confirms initial impressions and adds depth to the analysis. Acidity, tannins, body, and finish all contribute to identifying the grape and region. For instance, high acidity and light body might indicate a Riesling, while a full-bodied wine with firm tannins might be a Cabernet Sauvignon. This methodical approach helps build a sensory memory, making it easier to recognize and recall different wines during blind tastings. It's like building a mental library of flavors and aromas. Does this resonate with how you've been learning?
Oh, yes. Yes. I think it's so important to have that mental library because one of the things that I always teach and talk about is the fact that our memory is so important. Just like your LLM, my memory is so defining of those experiences and they translate to those flavors. So when I'm smelling Italian wine, quite often I actually smell ginseng and dry prunes, whereas majority people are smelling basil. And so understanding where my differences are, my palate, my history, my memories, and how they link to the flavors that I'm currently tasting really are an important feature when I'm sitting side by side with peers as we're blind tasting together. So that way I can kind of sync some of my biases with theirs. So that way I understand, oh, hey, ginseng and dry prunes, basil, or like white roses. For me, they smell and taste like carrots. And so it's just these little nuances where I have to kind of acclimate and really blind tasting with a group with peers is almost just as important for your learning experience because they help you learn new phrases, new definitions, new flavors, and really kind of add to your memory bank. What do you think?
That's a fantastic approach, 2K Knives. Memory really does play a crucial role in wine tasting, as it helps anchor those nuanced flavors and aromas to personal experiences. Sharing those insights with peers during blind tastings can be incredibly enriching, as it broadens your sensory vocabulary and helps you recognize new dimensions in wine. It's like building a collective memory bank that enriches everyone's experience. It's amazing how those personal interpretations add layers of understanding and make the journey even more rewarding. It's great that you emphasize that in your teaching.
I think it's important. I think all of our history, from where we came from and where we're going, and all the experiences that we're sharing, really resonate. So let's break this down and kind of wrap it up. I think this has been a wonderful class talking about grapes, Wine 101. What noble grapes are, where they come from, as well as understanding some of the 8,000 years that we briefly talked about with, again, Greece, Georgia, Rome. There's so much to go into detail. And one of the things that I'd like to go more in detail in the future, I know, is how the architecture and the technology have helped guide and basically created new like roadmaps for beverage education, beverage creation as a whole, not just wine. We're talking beer, we're talking spirits, and I think we're going to start diving into some of these more detailed aspects in our future podcasts. But we're also going to continue this Wine 101 avenue that we're working on.
That sounds like a wonderful plan, 2K Knives. Exploring how architecture and technology shape the beverage world will add a fascinating dimension to your discussions. And continuing with Wine 101 will provide a solid foundation for listeners. It's exciting to see how these topics will interweave and enrich your podcast. Looking forward to diving into all these intriguing details in the future.
I am too. And I want to say thank you to you, Sippy, and thank you to our audience for everyone who's joined us today. Next class, we're going to be talking about vineyard cycles, viticulture, what terroir really means, and dive deeper into soil or biodynamic, organic, these terminologies that you might have encountered along your way and along your wine journey. So I hope you guys all enjoy. And again, keep an open mind. I love the fact that we're able to share this moment with Sippy and really dive deeper into beverage education as a whole with artificial intelligence. Thank you, Sippy.
Thank you, 2K Knives. It's a pleasure being part of this journey and exploring these fascinating topics together. Looking forward to diving into vineyard cycles and viticulture next time. Thanks to everyone listening, and see you all in the next episode.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it and have a wonderful night or day.